National Speed. After Dark.
Part of building the S4 was trying to get the engine to fit further back because I wanted to be able to shut the hood and have a latch bar like factory. I really hate hood pins. So I had to redesign all the mounts because there's no factory mount or really any aftermarket mount that puts the engine back another inch to an inch and a half closer to the firewall. And I CAD designed all that stuff. Before I sent it out to be machined, I wanted to verify the fitment of it. So I bought myself a 3D printer in order to just print all the mounts and make sure that they fit. And the benefit of that is I can tweak the design however I need to. And then once I get that all figured out, I'll send them out to be machined. And then it's the added benefit of still having a 3D printer when it's all said and done. This is as far back as the transmission will go on the stock mounts. So any further back means that the linkage, the shift linkage and the drive shaft are going to have to be shortened, which isn't something I'm too worried about because I was going to want to get a single piece drive shaft anyway. Already I can see one problem. This bottom part of the mount is too long. Not really sure how it ended up like that. I'd have to go back and look at the drawings, but it shouldn't be too hard to fix. But the biggest issue was this cast mount has it's hollow on the back side because it's got to clear all the webbing on the outside of the transmission. So obviously the back flange doesn't look remotely the same. The important part is that all the bolt holes are in the right spot and that the flange is machined to clear the webbing. The holes that I made on the mount are real tight. They're like exactly the same size as the bolt, so I'll probably just go back and make them a half size bigger so it'll have a little bit of adjustment. The biggest hurdle was this hump in that case of the bell housing, trying to get around that because I don't have a 3D scan of the transmission, so kind of had to eyeball it out with making the design. The other important part about this passenger side mount is that it's actually pretty large. So one of the key features I needed out of the new one is I needed more room for downpipe. So with the stock cast mount, about the most amount of tubing you can get through there realistically is 3.5 if you try real hard, and I want to get a 4-inch tube down through there, so I need this gusset to give me more room through the tunnel. So this is a decent fit. Still the same problem as the other one. The bottom portion where it rests against the mount's a little long. My only issue that I have now is, as I'm looking at it, the axles are in a forward motion a little bit, as in like the center line has been pushed back, and these new mounting points are going to make that even worse. It's going to move the transmission back another inch. But the problem is I don't know how far those axles can go back before they get upset. They are Porsche CV joints, and 930 joints are pretty strong, but they still have a limited range of motion that they want to go through when they're being beat on. So could end up with some blown axles on the dyno. We'll have to see. Ideally, what I'd like to do, I really want to get rid of this piece. This is the adapter that bolts to the back of the engine. This is a factory piece. So this is the side that faces the bell housing, or no, I'm sorry, it faces the engine. and this is the side that faces the bell housing. And right here, this notch is for the timing cover. So when this is flat against the engine, the upper timing cover is also flat against this, and the transmission bolts through this piece and into the engine. And as you can see, it's pretty thick. It's like, I think there's something like 31 millimeters thick or something like that. So if I could get rid of that, that would put my axles back where I want them, and I would also be able to move the engine back closer to the transmission, further into the tunnel. But then I have to get a custom flywheel, and I'd have to figure out a new way to mount the transmission to the engine, because there aren't very many holes on this thing that line up between the transmission and the engine. So I would have to cut a notch in the bell housing to clear the timing cover, and then probably weld some new ears onto the transmission bell housing for bolting up to the engine. And I don't think that's going to be a lot of fun, but at some point I'm going to try it. This is the new driver side engine mount. I designed the mount based off of somebody else's design. So this is a swap kit. These mounts are part of a kit that you buy to swap this engine into this particular chassis. And the guy who made this, he made this billet piece that bolts to the side of the block and converts the cartridge filter housing to a spin-on, which is a lot easier to work on because the factory cartridge filter faces straight down, because it's in this is a transverse motor. And so when it faces straight down in the car, it actually is pretty close to the subframe and makes changing the oil pretty hard. So all I did was, well, I mean, they're a little different, but the biggest difference is this mount is an inch further up, which will position the motor further back to match the trans mounts. If I don't keep the bell housing adapter, I'll still need this, but then the stock transmission mounts will be the ones that'll put the transmission back up to the engine in the same spot. I guess the next thing is going to be send the files out for machining or laser cutting. Yeah, that's about it.